Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Happy Birthday Kit. Chapter 4, Penny Pincher Party. It seemed, after all, that Grace had only been trying to express how happy she was to meet the chickens. Much to everyone's surprise, Grace soon became the chickens' best friend. She followed Kit around when Kit fed the chickens and spent most of her day asleep outside their coop. This was just as well, because there she was out of Mother's sight. Whenever Kit came inside to ensure the kittens had enough water, Grace opened one eye, bumped her tail lazily, and then went back to sleep. The chickens forgave and accepted Grace. They all went about the business of eating their feed, clucking, and laying their eggs with Grace for company. "These chickens are the fattest and finest chickens in Cincinnati," Aunt Millie said one day when she and Kit were feeding them. "They should be," said Kit, folding up an empty feed sack, "considering all the feed they eat." Kit didn't mean to sound critical of the chickens. She still liked them, even if she disliked selling their eggs. "We'll take the feed sack," said Aunt Millie. "I have something special in mind for it." "I wonder what," thought Kit, as she handed Aunt Millie a big flour sack. "Dish towels, pillowcases, no matter what, it'll be something new for the sewing section of Aunt Millie's Waste Not, Want Not Almanac." All the sections of the almanac were more and more filled in. Kit Ruthie Sterling had carefully recorded Aunt Millie's recipe for pickling dilly beans, the early green beans from the vegetable patch. They also written her advice about storing winter woolen blankets and coats in the mothballs for the winter. How Kit wished she could put away her winter woolen school clothes too, but her spring clothes from last year did not fit her, and there was no money to buy new clothes. So despite the fact that the winter was growing warmer, Kit had to wear heavy, uncomfortable winter clothes to school. As soon as she came home to work in the garden, she put on the raggy, baggy overalls she had inherited from Charlie. When Kit kicked off her shoes and peeled back her socks and worked barefoot in the vegetable patch, she felt like a different person, one her classmates wouldn't recognize. The day before Kit's birthday was the warmest day yet. Kit could feel sweat prickling on the back of her neck under her wool collar as she walked to school with Sterling and Ruthie, and it was only 8 o'clock in the morning. By afternoon, Kit's clothes felt so tight and itchy that she could hardly pay attention to her teacher, Mr. Fisher. The classroom was stuffy, even with the windows open, and everyone else seemed restless. The students all wiggled in their seats. There was a lot of whispering and footing and shuffling. "Boys and girls," Mr. Fisher said sharply, "quiet." And at the moment the door to the classroom swung open, the students spun around to see who it was, and when they did, they stared. Kit gasped. It was Aunt Millie. A low ripple of giggles swept through the classroom. Kit looked at Aunt Millie through her classmates' eyes and understood why they were giggling. Aunt Millie did look peculiar. She was wearing her clean but faded workaday dress and her Sunday best hat and clothes. Her hair was out from under her hat. Her cheeks were ruddier than usual. "Mr. Fisher," she said in her twangy voice, "I'm Margaret Mildred Kittredge's Aunt Millie, and I'd like to speak to your class." Certainly," Mr. Fisher said. "Go ahead." Aunt Millie beamed at Kit as she strode to the front of the classroom. Kit tried hard to smile back at Aunt Millie, but she couldn't. The classroom hissed with whispers. Roger, the boy behind Kit, poked her back. "That's your aunt," he said. "She looks like she just got off the farm." Kit flushed with anger and embarrassment. Roger was right. The way Aunt Millie looked was so fine at home, but it's all wrong here in front of Kit's classmates. Oh, why did Aunt Millie come here, she wondered. "I've come today to invite you all to a birthday party for Margaret Mildred," Aunt Millie said. "It'll be after school tomorrow at our house, and it'll be Jim Dandy." "Jim Dandy?" Some of the students laughed and repeated Aunt Millie's unfamiliar expressions to one another in giggled whispers. "This is terrible," thought Kit. She stiffened as Aunt Millie went on. "I've been teaching Margaret Mildred and her friends a lot of ways to save money and have fun at the same time," Aunt Millie said. "They've enjoyed it, and I bet all of you would too. So come to our Penny Pincher party tomorrow. You'd have beans out of our vegetable patch, I'll show you how to make a salad out of dandelion greens, and you can feed the chickens. Chickens! The students exploded in merriment. They flapped their arms as if they were chicken wings. Some of the boys and girls made clucking noises and Roger crowed like a rooster. Kit was so mortified she wished she could disappear and never be seen again. But Aunt Millie did not seem the least bit disturbed by the students' antics. I'll show you how to make bloomers out of a flour sack, she said. Bloomers! Now the students were laughing out loud. Aunt Millie, laughed too, as if they were all on a wonderful joke together. She doesn't even realize they're making fun of her. Kit thought, she doesn't know how they'll make fun of me. Oh, how I wish she had never come. Kit thought how she felt at the grocery store and selling eggs. It was bad enough to be embarrassed in front of strangers. This is much, much worse. Well, said Mr. Fisher and Aunt Millie. Thank you. He turned to Kit. Perhaps you'd like to escort your aunt out the door, he said. Kit stood up. Her knees were wobbly, and she was so red in the face she felt she were on fire. Silently, she led Aunt Millie through the halls to the door of the school. Margaret Mildred, asked Aunt Millie, what was the matter? Kit bit her lip and looked at her shoes. She was too angry to look at Aunt Millie in the eyes. Don't you like the idea of a penny pincher party? Aunt Millie asked. No, said Kit in a raspy whisper. She looked up at Aunt Millie with eyes that were full of hot tears. I don't. I hate it. It's embarrassing. Why did you tell everyone at school about the things we do at home? That's private. I don't want my friends to know how poor we are. I don't want them to ever see it. Oh, I wish you had never come. Aunt Millie stepped back. Ah, she said softly. I see. She turned away from Kit. I'm sorry, dear child, she said, and then she left. Kit, Ruthie, and Sterling did not talk as they walked home together after school. As soon as Kit got to her house, she ran upstairs to her room and flung herself face down in her bed. All the burning tears she had bottled up inside came pouring out. Kit cried and cried. Soon her pillow was hot and damp from the tears and her sweat. A soothing breeze came from the window and lifted her hair stuck to the back of Kit's neck. Kit raised her head so the breeze could cool her face. Suddenly she sat up. Hanging in front of the window, fluttering gently on the breeze, was a dress. It was simple and flowery, springy and beautiful. Kit stood up, pulled off her 2 heavy winter clothes, and slipped the dress on. It felt cool and light and airy. She felt as if she could fly. Kit smoothed the front of the dress with her hands and looked at the material. It was then she realized the dress was made out of a chicken feed sack. It was another one of Aunt Millie's magical creations. Kit sat down hard on the bed. Oh, Aunt Millie, she thought, how could I have spoken to you the way I did at school? How could I have been ashamed of you? How could I have been so wrong? Kit ran downstairs as fast as she could and found Mother and Dad in the kitchen. Where's Aunt Millie? She asked. Kit's sweetheart. Aunt Millie asked to say goodbye for you, said Dad. She decided to go home on the 4:30 train today. She's gone? Wailed Kit. Oh, it's my fault. Hurriedly, Kit told Mother and Dad what had happened at school. But now I see how wrong I was. Please, we've got to stop her. You don't want her to go back to Kentucky, do you? Dad looked at Mother with a question in his eyes. Suddenly, Mother smiled. If we hurry, she said, we can catch her before she gets on the train. And here is the dress that was made. The train station was huge, noisy, and full of people. But Kit spotted Aunt Millie right away. She was sitting perfectly straight with her suitcase by her side, reading her book of Shakespeare poems. Kit ran to her. Aunt Millie, Kit said breathlessly. Oh, I'm sorry. Please don't go. Mother and Dad combined, but we need you, Miss Mildred, said Mother. We can't get along without you. Won't you come back with us? Asked Dad. Aunt Millie smiled a small smile. No, my dears, she said, you've been very kind putting with me and my bossiness, but I can see that my country ways don't fit here in the city. For you, they are, she gave Kit a kindly forgiving look, then said, for you, they are embarrassing. Then she spoke briskly. No, it's time for me to go and take my ideas with me. Kit sat down next to Aunt Millie. Gently she took Aunt Millie's book out of her hands and put another book in its place. It was the Waste Not, Want Not Almanac. Look, Kit said earnestly, turning to the page so that Aunt Millie could see. Sterling and Ruthie and I made this. It's full of your ideas. We like them so much. We put them in a book so we'd never forget them. Heavenly day, said Aunt Millie in a long, drawn-out whisper. She touched the dandelion green and Ruthie had glued to a page. Studied Sterling's sketch of the chickens and smiled at Kit's list of grocery tips. When looked at Mother and Kit and Dad, her eyes were bright. I hope you'll come home, Aunt Millie, said Aunt Kit, and teach all my friends your ideas, too, at the penny pincher party. Aunt Millie stood up and held out her hand to Kit. Let's away, she said, quoting Shakespeare in her old lively way. Kit carried her suitcase and Mother carried her basket because Aunt Millie's hands were full. She was holding Kit's hands in one of her hands and carrying the Waste Not, Want Not almanac in the other. The penny pincher party was the best party Kit had ever had. Kit agreed afterwards that it was the best birthday party. Kit's classmates agreed afterwards it was the best party anyone had ever had. Aunt Millie had planned the whole party, but everyone helped. Sterling made paper party hats for all guests, including Grace, who appeared to be under the impression that the party was in her honor. She trotted from guest to guest and leaned up against each one, allowing each one to pat her. While Mr. Pett played his bass fiddle, Mr. and Mrs. Bell taught the children to square dance, and Miss Hart and Miss Finney taught them to sing, My Darling Clementine. The ragman was here, and he and Dad gave children rides on his horse. Charlie took pictures of them with his camera. Aunt Millie's friend, the butcher, helped the children cook hot dogs or sticks over a fire, and Mrs. Howard and Mother taught the children to make flowers and necklaces. The children liked Aunt Millie's penny pincher lessons best of all. Aunt Millie taught them how to pick the most tender dandelion greens to make a salad. She showed them how to feed the chickens and collect their eggs. She brought out a flour sack full of sunflower seeds and taught the children how to plant, water, and weed. Remember, she said, quoting Shakespeare, sweet flowers take time, weeds make haste. When the flour sack was empty, Aunt Millie held it up. Well, she said with a twinkle in her eye, look at all this, an empty sack. An empty cloth sack. Would you like to show me how to make bloomers out of this? Yes, shouted all the children, including Kit. They laughed, and Kit realized that even at school they had been laughing at the delight of the idea, not meanly. They were enchanted by Aunt Millie as Kit and Ruthie and Sterling had been. You're so lucky, Kit, sighed Ruthie. This is a wonderful party. The sun had set. The yard was lit with lanterns. Aunt Millie had saved from a trash pile and repaired. The lanterns had candles inside them, and they swayed in the soft evening breeze, so their light danced across the grass. Kit, Ruthie, and Sterling were sitting across together, eating a chocolate roll cake Aunt Millie had made. Ruthie asked, Do you mind that it's not a Robin Hood party? In a way, it is a Robin Hood party, Kit said, because Aunt Millie reminds me of Robin Hood. She doesn't rob from the rich to give the poor, but she scrimps and saves, and then whatever she has, she gives away. She's thrifty in order to be generous. Kit spread her arms. Look at this party she's created for all of us, even if I was so terrible about it. How did you convince her not to leave? Asked Sterling. Kit grinned. How do you think? She said. Ruth and Sterling both looked at Kit with sparkling eyes. You showed her the almanac, they said together. Yep, said Kit. Aunt Millie's Waste Not, Want Not almanac, with all her great ideas inside. You know, said Sterling, I think we should add a new section. Right, said Ruthie. We could call it Having a Penny Pincher Party. Or, said Kit, How to Have a Very Happy Birthday. And that's the end of Happy Birthday, Kit. Thanks for listening.